This week's episode of I Was a Teenage Film Snob is not brought to you by chocolates, presents, or gift cards. Welcome to I Was a Teenage Film Snob. I'm James Chalmers, your friendly neighborhood film snob, and this is a very special episode of the show. This is our 1 year anniversary show. If you look at the episode number, it doesn't add up. It's episode 39. There should be 52 of these. We took some breaks. But this is the 1 year anniversary show. 1 year ago today, I was sitting in my bed with my wife recording the very first episode of the podcast. And 1 year later, I'm sitting in that same bed with my wife to celebrate 1 year of podcasting.
Yay.
So welcome to this very special episode. My wife, Tina.
Happy anniversary, James.
Thank you. It has been a crazy year.
Has it?
Well, look, not in life, not so much, but I think like what this was just like a little project I kind of set out for myself a year ago. And some of the things that have happened and some of the reach that we've had and some other things that have gone on have surprised me, people I've spoken to. And I don't even mean some of the international guests, which I'm sure we'll cover later on in the episode. But even just, sitting down with, my dad, your sister, like people I would, Maddie. Like, well, again, I'm sure we'll talk about all those people throughout the show. But when I first started the podcast, I was like, well, I know I'll talk to you. I know I'll talk to Nick. Those were the two people I could guarantee were going to be on the show because you guys were on the last podcast. But I just didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know whether I'd stick with it. I hoped I would because I'd been longing to talk about movies with people on a regular basis for quite a while, all through COVID. But I just didn't know what was going to happen. So I think it has been kind of a crazy year. It's been a really fun ride and a lot of things have happened that I wasn't really expecting. So I should say to the audience now, if you're expecting the same old top 5 movies of some sort of genre thing, that's not happening this week. It's a once-off. Well, not a once-off. We've done a couple of episodes that haven't been that. Yeah. But for the most part, that is the format. But today's going to be more of a retrospective. We're just kind of going to talk about, I guess, the last 12 months and what they've meant to me and Tina to some extent. She's not as emotionally invested in the podcast as I am, but you
still am. Yeah.
No, but I'm not saying you're not. Like, not at all. But
it's your baby. It's your project.
It's my show.
That's right. It's your baby.
Because that's your job. But it was fitting, I thought, to have you be the guest on this episode, considering you were there for the very first one.
Cool.
Although I will say, technically, the first episode recorded was episode 3 with my dad, but the first episode of the show. That's a little bit behind the scenes stuff that people might not know.
A little bit BTS.
I'm not a K-pop boy, but there's a little cultural joke there for you all. Do you want to hear some fast facts? That was very Office Ladies, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Office Ladies.
Do you want to hear some facts about the show?
Sure.
I put a few things together. So the very first episode of the show debuted on the 20th of February 2022. Yeah. It was a Sunday morning. The 1 year anniversary episode is going to drop on the 19th of February 2023, which is also a Sunday morning, which I guess isn't really a fun fact as much as that's how calendars work.
Yes, that's right.
But I was like, I guess it's more a fun fact that, he managed to actually...
It's a fun fact. Did you know how time works?
I guess more that just I managed to hit the date because
But you haven't hit the date. You've hit the day, Sunday.
Yes, good point. Well, it would make sense. It wouldn't make sense to drop the episode on a different day just to celebrate the anniversary. But considering I missed a few, like December, I think it's good that I have managed to mark the occasion in some way.
You know what an anniversary is, right, James?
Yes, as I'm saying, as you pointed out, I'm very aware that I sound like a moron. But in my defense, that's kind of been my shtick the entire time. So I'm really just leaning into myself. Here are some numbers for you. 39 episodes, 44 movie lists, 13 guests, 1 flashback episode, 1 improv episode, which you were part of, and over 200 movies discussed.
Wow.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
I mean, I'm sure there were some double ups because some guests, will use the same movies in similar, different lists if they want to. I always try to keep it fresh and different because I just want to talk about different movies all the time. Right now, we're in the middle of our 90s
Nostalgia.
Yeah, we're doing our 90s list at the moment. We've had a couple of people speak about 90s films, and everyone's like, oh, he's going to talk about Clerks. I talked about Clerks on my first list, and people are like, oh, he'll talk about Dogma. I talked about that on the list as well. So I've got really no Kevin Smith films for my 90s list. He released a couple of others in there, but they wouldn't really crack the top 5 for me. So so it's going to be an interesting list. But how have you enjoyed it? We haven't really talked about your involvement off air, I suppose, much. Like, I'll tell you, like, oh, I'm recording this, I'm catching with this person, but we don't really talk about how you feel about the show or how you feel about me doing the show. So what's it, as an observer on the side for a lot of it, how has it affected you and what do you think of it?
I pretty much enjoy it the same as I've enjoyed our previous podcasts together. So it's literally just like, I'm happy to just sit and chat. I always find that I struggle with how much to say, I feel. So I have a problem where I tend to forget a lot of what happens in the movies that I watch. And so when I'm a guest on the show, I'm like, I think I liked it. I think I remember liking it. Unless it was the movie that I watched when I was younger and I watched like a million times.
Yeah, sure.
Then I often struggle like remembering. I will also preface with saying that I am a bit sick as well, so that's why you might hear me a bit croaky and you might hear me a bit coughy throughout the show. So I'll try and muffle it as much as I can. But I'm like super happy to just watch you enjoying your time. Like, I can't believe that you've been able to talk to like international guests. That's amazing.
That's been very cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. And yeah, I'm just happy for you to just have a good time and talk to your friends and do the thing that you love. We support each other with all the things that we do. So
I was going to say, is it nice to see me have a project?
Yeah, absolutely. But you seem to. You often have a project.
I suppose so.
This isn't the first foray into podcasting that you've done.
No, certainly not.
And you write stories and stuff like that as well.
I think, what happened, this podcast, like, I've probably talked about it before, but in case I haven't, I'll reiterate it. It was born from COVID, really, which was, we had lockdown, we had Zoe, and I found myself just kind of like, oh, I did a couple other things as well. Like, I worked in jobs where people didn't talk about movies, but I just found myself wanting to do something for myself. And I was like, oh, I would really like to podcast again. But, it was such an ordeal to try and get everyone in the same room at the same time. When we were doing Past the Remote with Nick, Nick had obligations, you had obligations. We all had, and the schedules got tougher and tougher. And then through COVID, like Zoom, which I guess had been around for a while, but I'd never thought of or heard of before, became this tool that everyone was using. I was like, oh, that would be a really useful tool to be able to do a podcast. And if I was the only host, if I didn't have to, ask you guys to keep changing those schedules or meeting my schedule, if I had a rotating co-host, then that would be quite manageable, I think.
Yeah.
And again, like, it's led to those opportunities, as we said, like talking to people in the United States, talking even just like to my dad, like, who lives over an hour away. So to try and get time with him isn't always the easiest thing to do. But over Zoom, you can arrange a couple of hours, and it's pretty easy done. So,
well, I think that leads me into my first question for you, which is, when you started with this podcast, what were your hopes? What were your goals? What were your ambitions? What did you want to achieve with making this podcast?
Look, I'd be lying if I didn't say I hoped it would be the most successful thing I ever did and I could just retire off it. I think I'd be lying if I said that. But realistically, I just wanted to talk about movies with people, It'd been such a big part of my life through so many of my jobs, like bartending. I worked with, actors, and at McDonald's I worked with people who, would go to the video stores were still a thing back then. They go to the video store or the movies every weekend. But as I've moved into more corporate roles, like, there have been jobs where the people don't have time to talk or they just have different interests. And I really missed talking about movies because for me, and I was talking about this on another podcast recently, for me, the movie doesn't start, when the lights go down, and when it doesn't end when the credits roll. Like, the movie starts for me when I see the first trailer, and the movie ends for me once I finish talking about it with someone 3 days later. Or potentially, as with some movies, some of my guests, like, it's been years since that movie came out. I'm still talking about it, but it was just wanting to interact with people. And I think my point of view had changed a lot over time as well. Sorry, I just threw my phone off the bed. I just made myself laugh. They just kept buzzing. Um, my point of I've been, the title is a jokey title and a reference to
Yeah.
1950s horror, but it is also true. Like I was very snobby about movies, and during COVID and after becoming dad and stuff, I kind of changed my attitude towards movies a bit as well, and I wanted to be more positive, and I kind of took on this mantra, this saying in the podcast, which is, if every movie is someone's favorite movie, then there can be no bad movies. And at first it was just a joke, but the more I talk with people, the more I learn about what people are interested in, the more I believe it. I'm just like, you know
Yeah.
what, there are no bad movies. And so it's I guess trying to be like create a positive place to talk about movies, no matter how good or bad they are, and just speak with fun, cool, interesting people, and like get people to hear them as well. Like I'm a big fan of everyone I've spoken to on the podcast, and if I had my way, they would be on a stage telling their stories as well. And maybe that's perfect example. Someone like Liz, your sister, like she's someone who we talked about on the podcast. I'm not giving anything away, but she said that she was a little bit nervous about doing it because she wasn't a huge fan of speaking in public. And I reminded her, well, first of all, it's pre-recorded, so that's okay. Like you won't be speaking in front of an audience live or anything. But also, I think she's very interesting, has a very fascinating point of view, and I was able to kind of give her a platform where she could talk about things, and it ended up being one of the most popular episodes we did. So I guess like giving a voice to people who maybe didn't realize they had a voice or wanted to have a voice to talk about these things. Very long answer to a very simple question, which is kind of my brand.
Yeah. Well, that's good to hear. Like, I'm glad that it's not just a case of you going, I want to try this thing. I want to I really want to be successful, depending on your barometer of what successful means, and then being able to surpass that. I think is really good.
It's just been fun talking to people about it. And as I said, look, there's that pipe dream, like, well, maybe it could become something more, and I've got ideas of what can do to do that. But at this stage, it's just about having those conversations. It's just a really fun hobby, and it's satisfying that need for me to talk about movies because
Yeah.
that's my language. Like,
Yeah.
it sounds, lame or maybe even silly for a guy in his mid-30s to not be able to communicate properly without movies, but that's just how I do it. Like, that's how I navigate the world.
Was the show everything you would hoped it would be?
I think it has surpassed what I hoped it would be.
Oh, good.
I never kind of expected to go beyond, me and a couple of friends,
Yeah.
maybe a family member, that sort of thing. But no, we're closing on 400 followers on social media, which doesn't sound like a lot, compared to like a Kim Kardashian or something like that. But 400 people who like the things
Yeah,
that I'm
but
posting.
you're not going to have to release a sex tape in order to.
No, and I don't have the booty to back it up either.
That's my job.
But like for a guy in Melbourne sitting in his office talking about movies with people, like people who aren't celebrities, to have 400 people be like, hey, I like what you're posting, and it's just a photo of a Blu-ray, but they like that. And then we're closing on 500 listens of the podcast, which again, like, isn't huge numbers. Like, it's not going to pay the bills or anything, but 500 people or 500 listens of just me talking about stuff. It's really validating and really kind of affirming as well. Like, I don't need to be sitting in stadiums talking about movies, but if someone wants to, because I don't do short episodes either. Like, their minimum is an hour, but a lot of them are 2 hours plus.
Yeah.
So for people to to come back and listen to it again and again, like that's means there's something there, and it's more than I could have.
Right.
More than I could have expected, and I've been so appreciative of it, and really love that people are giving the show a chance.
Yeah.
Not a long answer for you.
No, that's great. Well, would you say would be the best thing about doing the podcast then?
For me, or
okay, two-pronged question then. What do you think is the best thing, like, for you doing the podcast, and what? No, that just that question.
So I guess what's the best thing about the podcast for me? I guess I've kind of already talked about it. Really, it satisfies that hunger to talk about the things that I love. But I guess kind of like on a deeper level, like, it's allowed me to connect with people in a way that I didn't expect. And I'm not talking about, I spoke to, American filmmakers and stuff like that. That's very, very cool. But, I sat down with my sister on 3 or 4 separate occasions and spent 2 hours talking to her, and I haven't lived at home in over a decade, and when we don't see each other a lot due to, you know,
Work and
distant.
schedules and
Yeah.
distance and
So
stuff.
to be able to
Yeah.
put down 2 hours aside, every couple of months and just sit down and just talk movies.
And reconnect.
Reconnect, but also, like, hear her present herself in a way outside of the person I know her to be. Like, I know her as my sister, but, like, when she's on the podcast, she's just like a film lover, and she's just talking to me person to person, which, it might sound a bit silly, but I've never seen her as any other way than my sister. And the same could be applied to almost any of my guests. Like, I sat down and had a 2.5 hour conversation with my mum.
Yeah.
Like, done a few with my dad. Like, I'm getting to know friends better than I did. Like, I've known Josh for 30 years, but I'm really getting to know a lot more about him, stuff I never knew. Maddie, who was, who's obviously one of your friends. She's one of my friends as well, but she's one of your friends. And has been hands down, I mean, no disrespect to anyone else on the podcast, the most entertaining guest I've ever had.
Yeah.
Like, makes me laugh constantly every time she's on. And I didn't know that I never expected to have that kind of friendship with her.
Yeah.
Which has been really lovely. Like, so it's the connections and, like, I guess the reconnecting with people I hadn't spoken with as much, but also finding deeper connections with people that I have been close to. Yeah. That's probably what I've gotten out of it most. Like, just being able to sit down on a personal level and connect with people, because it's not something that I'm particularly good at doing in real life. I tend to be, and again, like, you might roll your eyes and disagree, but, like, I can be quite quiet, kind of like reserved. I'll kind of, if I'm familiar with people, I'll get quite loud and boisterous, but I am kind of introverted. I'm not necessarily the first person to start a conversation all the time. So it's been a nice little outlet for me to also kind of come out of my comfort zone a bit as well.
Yeah, absolutely. No, 100%. Is there a favorite memory that you have from the podcast, or like a favorite moment that really sort of sticks out and you go, oh, like that was brilliant?
I guess the Maddie Pee Wee Herman stuff is very, very funny. If you, I don't, I'm not going to lie. You don't listen to the show. I know you don't listen to the show.
No, I don't listen to
and that's fine. Like, I don't expect you to. I'm not sitting there tapping my foot everywhere. I'm like, well, was it good?
James Acaster doesn't listen to his own show.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
But no, there was an episode when we were talking about 80s films, and Maddie, like, went on a whole tangent and did this Pee Wee Herman, like, impression that was cracking me up. Like, it was a very weird show. Like, we were both very, very tired. And, it was very, very entertaining. But, like, so that's something that I think of constantly. Like, that whenever I think about the show, that one cracks me up. But I think also a really favorite moment was interviewing my mum. Like, it took almost a year to get my mum on the show.
Yeah.
And I remember saying, I'm like, she just doesn't, like, ask her if she wants to come on. She says, yeah, she'll organize, she'll let me know, and then she never gets back to me. And you're like, James, maybe she doesn't want to do the show. And that hadn't really crossed my mind, because I'm like, well, she's my mum. Like, why wouldn't she want to talk to me? And then she did tell me when she finally did, she's like, yeah, I didn't really want to do it because I was really nervous and I wasn't sure about it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, fair enough. But we spent so much time reminiscing and talking about, my childhood.
Well, that's really the basis of what this show is about. It's about reminiscing on movies that you've watched.
Yes.
Reminiscing on the times that you had when you watched them. So it's really like a reminiscence.
It's very much like an audio memoir.
Yeah.
And it's a nostalgia trip. And, like, the approach has always been to learn where people's love for film, or not even love, I said very early on, like, we've made no secret about it. You're not a massive film fan. Like, you like movies, but you're not.
Yeah,
you're not.
I like movies, but I'm not a buff.
No, you're pretty ripped.
Thanks.
But like, you're not like but that was the whole point of it. I didn't need to speak to movie buffs. I didn't want this to be a show where people were being snobby and analytical and being like dissecting it in a way that
It's just everyday people talking about the everyday movies that they enjoy.
This is a show about movie fans who like talking about movies.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, that's another way that I market it. Like, that's all it is. Like, it's a very casual, laid back conversation. But
what were you saying about your mum?
Yes, I got sidetracked, which happens a lot on this show. We got to really talk about where it all started, and we were reminiscing on my youth, and we were kind of filling in some blanks that I was missing. And it was just like a really lovely conversation, and a conversation again that I hadn't really had with my mum before.
Yeah.
And I guess the third thing I have to put it in, like, there's no way I can avoid it. Interviewing Tyler and Harley from the US was an absolute blast. Like, something I never thought would happen in my life. To talk to two US actors, filmmakers, like, on their own dream, on their own journey to try and create art and to reach out to me and just be like, hey, we'd love to come on the show if you're interested in collaborating. Knowing very little about me and my show, and I said to them, I said, look, I'm happy to do it. That's awesome, but I feel like it's gonna be more of a benefit for me than you. Like, this is a very small show. It's been around for a couple of months. I don't have a lot of followers, but they just wanted to. They liked the show. They'd listened
Yeah.
and they dug the show, and they just wanted to talk to someone who I think was going to treat. I don't want to assume. So if I'm speaking out of turn, someone can let me know. But I think someone who's going to treat their dream with respect and be like,
Yeah.
you guys are obviously very passionate about what you're doing, so let me talk to you about what you're passionate about
Yeah,
and
that's right.
celebrate it. Which I totally did. Like it was when I discovered like how to spam things on Instagram. Like every day there were new stories and posts and stuff. But I know they really appreciate it. I would send them little videos to the cast and stuff, being like, hey, like today's day one of shooting, good luck. Like I hope it all goes well. And I've been in regular contact with Tyler, and he is saying that he should be able to get back on the show, both of them, because their film's coming out very, very soon.
Yeah.
We don't have a release date yet, but it's meant to come out before Scream 6, which is due out in March. So we are trying to line something up. And his career's blown up. Like he was, he's kind of become the face of, I think it's Toyota in North America.
Oh, wow.
He was also in
Good
an
on
episode
him.
of SWAT. Yeah, very cool. So that was a huge highlight. But that was something that, like, I can't even count it a highlight. It's just something I never thought would happen.
Well, that was the thing. I remember when you like said to me, you were like, so these people from America have reached out and they want to do an interview on the podcast. I was like, that's amazing.
Yeah. I was so nervous. Like if you go back and listen to that episode, the first like 2-3 minutes is my opening monologue, because I don't just welcome to the show. I do an intro monologue and introduce the guests, and I'm reading off a page, which I never did, but I was like, I've got to treat these guys with like just with a different level. I want to make sure I'm introducing them properly, and I am like speaking quickly, and I'm like running out of breath.
Yeah.
And I sound really nervous, but it was a really great opportunity, and it led to other opportunities. I haven't had them on my show yet, but I've guest starred on a couple of podcasts now, where again, people who listen to my episode like what I was producing or putting out, and like, we'd love you to come on and talk about movies with us on our show, and do a bit of a crossover. And so I've made some friends, which is kind of cool as well, which I wasn't expecting. Like, I talked to Michael from We Love Horror almost on a daily basis. It feels like we're constantly in communication with each other. And Kevin and Jason from Midnight Terrors, I've been in pretty regular contact with as well. So I've been on both their shows, and those guys will come on hopefully in the coming weeks. It's just a scheduling thing because of the time differences and stuff like that.
Yeah. So would you say that that's the most unexpected thing to happen on the podcast, or would you say like something else? Like, is there a different unexpected thing that would happen on the podcast?
Definitely all the US stuff. Like, that's like having international guests appearing in an international podcast, that I just never thought would happen.
Yeah.
So that's definitely the most unexpected thing. But even like the follows and like the listen count is higher than I expected as well. Like, I just didn't know what was going to happen. Like, for me, it was a hobby. I'm like, I will talk to an empty room, and if no one ever listens to it, at least I'm having fun. And like, it'll be kind of cool for Zoe in 15 years' time to have this digital record of her dad. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
And I said that to Mum when she afterwards. I was like, like, I'm doing this for me, but it'll be nice for for Zoe to be able to listen to her dad in a few years' time. I said also, but it'd be nice for her to have a record of her grandma and her her granddad like talking and stuff, which is a kind of an added feature that was never the plan, but it is nice to have that. But yeah, all the international stuff is definitely the most unexpected. But I feel like at this stage, every episode that I make is just a bonus at this point. Like, it's going further than I could have imagined. And again, like, I want to reiterate, I'm not making millions of dollars. I'm not making any of dollars off this, but it's just been a really positive experience. And right now, or for the last few years, the internet has been a very negative place. Especially during COVID and lockdowns and stuff like social media has become kind of this cesspool of hate and frustration.
Yeah.
And what's been really nice is I haven't experienced any of that. Like, everyone I've interacted with has been very positive. And I've tried to be a very positive force. As I said, I really have changed my attitude towards the way I approach movies. Because I was at a point a few years ago where I was only enjoying maybe 25% of the movies I was watching. And I was like, that feels like I'm doing it wrong. Like, if I'm only enjoying like 1/4 of all movies I'm watching, then it's not the movies that's the problem, it's me.
Yeah.
So I've really tried to be that positive force online, and trying to kind of take that approach. Because also, like, I don't know if you've ever read reviews online, like, but people like film critics and film fans online can be pretty nasty as well. So I'm trying not to be that.
Has there ever been a movie that's broken that for you and you're just like, I can't. This movie is just awful.
No.
Like since then, since you made that decision to.
No, it hasn't. Like the movies that I know that I'm probably not going to like, I try to avoid just because I'm like, well, it's not made for me, so I'm probably not going to enjoy it. But even if I don't like it or it's not my thing, my attitude now is, well, look, it's not for me. Like we were talking about Twilight. I think it was on Midnight Terrors recently.
Yeah.
And I said, look, I said, first of all, that movie's nowhere near as bad as people say it is. Like everyone, jumped on the bandwagon when it came out to rip on it because of sparkly vampires. But I was like, unless you're a 14-year-old girl, that movie wasn't meant for you.
Yeah, that's right.
And also, like, credit where credit's due, Stephanie and I kind of found a new angle on vampires. We've been telling you about it. So a movie that I would have made fun of when it came out, I'm sure I did.
Yeah.
Like now,
I remember you making fun.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. But now, as an older, maybe not wiser, but more positive person, I can kind of rephrase my attitude and kind of support that film in a way. Like, it's still not for me, but at least I can find a way to kind of spin it, I suppose. The closest I've got to being negative at all since all these changes is actually in the last 2 episodes of this podcast. Oh, actually, one episode, last week's episode, and then next week's episode. So I spoke to Maddie, and we were talking about Jurassic Park Dominion, and that was the most negative I've been about a film. And I wasn't negative. I was basically like, oh, like they had this opportunity to surprise me, do something different, and instead they just did the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
And then in next week's episode, Josh and I did like a 20-minute divergent on Secrets of Dumbledore.
Yeah.
And again, like I was trying to be really nice about it. I said, look,
it's diplomatic.
I was like, look, it's not a terrible film. I said, but it just feels like, and this is a spoiler for next week's episode, but I said, it just felt like at one point they didn't really know what they were doing because of everything that was going on, like between the studio and stuff. So they're like, we'll just make it that they don't know what they're doing to confuse Grindelwald. And that means it's okay if no one knows what's going on in the movie.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the way I spun it. But even a few weeks ago, I was on We Love Horror, and Michael asked me to do the worst horror films of the year. And I said to him, like, you listen to my show, right? Like, I don't really do worst lists. And I listed my 5 least favorite horror films of the year, and I blamed myself for most of them. I was like, it's probably my fault. So I really do think I have changed in terms of my attitude. Like, I struggle to be mean and critical of films now. Not that I can't, point out flaws, but I tend to just look at the positives.
Yeah. Is there anything that you would change about the show? Whether it's what you would change that you did in the past, or what ideas to change for the future?
I don't know. The show's always growing and evolving, and I like that it's not like, when I first started, I didn't plan on doing like an 80s bracket and a 90s bracket and a horror bracket. I was kind of going to interview people, and then I ran out of friends.
Yeah.
So I was like, we'll just do a new phase. So I don't know if there's anything I would change. There are some episodes I still look back and I'm like, I wish I had maybe I would cut that joke, or maybe I would have gone into more detail on this, or I skipped a bit there, or I've never wanted to change a list. I've always been happy with the list I've changed.
Yeah.
I guess like the only time is sometimes I'm getting very kind of short on time for an episode, and so I'll record maybe when I'm not in the best shape to be doing it. Like maybe I'm a bit too tired, or I'll get a guest who wasn't very well prepared and wasn't their fault. This was the last one. Like, hey, can you do a podcast tonight? Because I don't want to have too many vacant weeks. So I guess I would try to be better prepared, and that's something I've really done this year. Like, I actually sent out a schedule to everyone at the start of the year. Hey, this is what the first 6 months are going to look like roughly. Like, you got a text message. Even you got a text message. Like, we live in the same house, and I sent you a text message the other night. Hey, episode 50 is coming up. It's a little while away. This is what I want to do. We need to start booking in a date as soon as possible to get the ball rolling. So the biggest, I think, area for change is to be more prepared, because even though it's a hobby and I don't need it to be perfect, like I've kind of been saying the last few weeks, it's punk rock. It's, it's me just kind of doing my own thing. It's not meant to be polished and shiny and stuff. There are some things I can do to make myself better prepared and provide a better quality of show, even if it still is punk rock and underground. So preparation has been a big thing.
No, that's good. Yeah, that's a good answer. I like that. What would you say would be the best top 5 list that you've heard on the show?
My 1980s one.
Your 1980s
no, I'm just being silly.
You can't choose your own lists.
I really
Because then you'd be like, all of my lists are the best top 5 lists. Starting with number 5, my list from the 80s. Number 4, my list of the best foods from movies.
I was going through the podcast episodes before we started, and I'd forgotten about the food episode.
I thought about that the other day because you know what I was thinking of? The bread from
Lord of the Rings?
No, Cinderella. You know, the bonjour.
Oh, yeah.
And the bread, and I was just thinking of that, and then I just remembered the top 5 lists.
Yeah, that was a joke, obviously, the 80s one, although I do like my 80s list quite a bit.
Oh, yeah, obviously you like your own list. That's why you can't say your own list. But who had a list that you were like, that is a good list?
I really liked David's top 5 favourite films of all time, and I can't remember all the films off the top of my head now, but he did a very different approach, and he actually, his list really inspired the changes made in the show, where he was like, look, it was really hard for me to find 5 movies that I love just across time. So what I did was I went through each decade that I've been alive, and I took one from each decade. So he did one from the 70s, one from the 80s, so on and so forth. I really liked that because it gave legs to the show, where I was like, oh, I've got something, I can do something different with this now. That's really cool. But also his list was very strong, which I really liked. Nick brings great lists constantly. Like Nick's a real film buff. Like he's probably the closest person in personality and film nerdism to me, which is why he's such a regular guest. So he brings really good lists all the time as well. But no one really does bad lists. Like even my mum's list, you know, I got to the end of it, I'm like, well, it's a very mum list, but it's supposed to be a mum list. Like she's a mum.
Well, this is my next question, because it's not who has the worst list, because we don't want to throw people under the bus.
Well, there's no negativity. There's
no negativity, but which was the list that you disagreed with the most, and you were like, oh, really? Would you put that in there? Oh, okay.
There's 2, and I already apologized to him because I brought it So Josh did a list a year ago. He was episode 4, and he put in a movie, and I kind of made fun of him for a little bit. And then when Maddie was on last week, I brought that movie up again and ridiculed him a year later.
Yeah.
And then when I recorded with Josh, like a couple of days later, I'm like, hey, I owe you an apology. I'm going to do it on the podcast. I'm formally apologizing because I ridiculed that list you made a year ago, and then I brought it up on an episode recently. But I've now got to the bottom of why I ridiculed that list, and it's not your fault. But Josh had AI, artificial intelligence, on his list, like number 2 favorite movie of all time.
Yeah.
And I was like, what are you talking about? I was like...
Well, that's not a bad movie, is it? I've seen bits and pieces of it.
I remember you distinctly hating it. And I was not a big... I was not a big fan of it either. But I was talking to Maddie about it because the reason it came up is because she mentioned Bicentennial Man as one of her favorite 90s films.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's a depressing watch. I'm like, that's a rough one. And as we're talking about it, I brought up AI, and then I realized, oh, it's not that they're bad movies. Those 2 movies have something in common that I really struggle with as a human being. And that's at the end of those films, a robot, a youthful and kind of like childlike robot, is left alone with no one to love them for like thousands of years. And they just sit there together.
Oh, God.
And I can't get my head around that. And I was like, oh, it's a me thing. Like that turns into...
That's like the end of Futurama with the dog.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate that feeling. I hate that feeling.
So I disagreed with Josh's list when his very first list because, like, artificial intelligence, what are you talking about? But then I was able to renege on it and kind of, again, like reframe my approach, because when I spoke to Maddie about it, I picked up on something. I was like, oh, that's why that movie doesn't work for me. It's not a bad film. There's something ingrained in my psyche that I can't handle. I can't process that. And so my response is, well, I don't like that movie.
Yeah.
Which is fine. You know, I haven't watched that movie since, and I don't like... Maddie was like, go ahead and watch them again. Watch Bicentennial Man and AI. I'm like, yeah, I will. I still don't know if I will. Like, I don't know if I need to be challenged emotionally like that anytime soon.
Oh, my God. I could not, no. Because I haven't seen Bicentennial Man, and I haven't seen all of AI. I've only seen bits and pieces of AI. But I would not be able to deal with, so the robot's just like, I will wait for 1,000 years.
Yeah.
To love me.
Well, I mean, you would really struggle with AI now because like
I have a child.
yes,
Yeah.
and it's a child robot looking up at like his mum or whatever. Yeah, like
Jesus. Oh yeah, because that's the whole thing. He thinks he's a real boy, doesn't he?
yes, yeah.
Fucking hell.
Yeah.
God,
so,
that's just going to destroy you.
but I think that's the one that I've disagreed with most. I think Tyler brought up Blair Witch Project on his horror list, and that's a film that I've just never really gotten into. But like again, like don't dislike the film. It's just one of those films where it didn't. I saw it too late, so it never really worked for me. But that's about all I did. But I said to him, I said, look, that's a film I really dug. So tell me about it. Like, what is about that film that really works for you? Because I want to understand.
Yeah.
But I think there are only a couple of films I've really disagreed with. There's most of the time, and there's never been an entire list where I'm like, what a rough list. Like, it's only been one or two films, and it's because I've had an issue with them on a psychological level, which I just learned recently.
Yeah. What would you say? Who was your most surprising guest? Both surprising in terms of like, oh, I wasn't expecting that content to come from you. Actually, yeah, that's my question. Who's your most surprising guest where you're like, oh, wow, I wasn't expecting you to have a list like that?
If we're talking solely about lists, I would say Maddie.
Yeah.
Because I frankly, and like she listens to the show, so she might be surprised me said, but I knew very little about her. Like she was your friend. Like I knew she liked Jurassic Park, and that was about all I knew. I didn't know if she watched a lot of movies. I didn't really like. I knew that like she would watch bad movies or she would watch disaster movies, but I knew very little about it. So when she came in that first time, and she like was rattling off titles I'd never heard of, from like the 1940s and stuff, I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my goodness, like. What an uncovered gem I've just discovered.
Yeah.
Like, and what a wonderful source of content. Like, and I've said to her, I've been saying to all my guests, like, there's never been a guest I haven't wanted back. Like, every guest is welcome. Like, every guest has produced wonderful content, and I've had a really good time with. But like after that first episode with Maddie, I was like, oh my god, like anytime, anytime you want to do this, like if you want to be the permanent new co-host, like I'll make it work. Like, I could not believe how much she brought, and she plans. Like she sends.
Yeah, she does.
Like she'll do mind maps, she'll do different diagrams and stuff. Like she takes it really, really seriously, which I don't expect people to do. Like I'm not like a hard,
but it's wonderful that she does.
Yeah, I'm not a hard ass. I'm not like, hey, like you got to bring your A game. Like I don't even ask people to show me their lists, which I know people. Some people are like, oh, well then you're not really prepared for the conversation. But I want to be surprised.
Yeah.
I know certain things. Like when Josh did his 90s list. I won't talk about his movies because the episode had come out yet, but like there were a couple and they were like, oh, yep, I was expecting that. I knew that was going to come up because I know Josh, I've known him for 30 years. So I got on a tangent again. But with Maddie, like just to take it so seriously, I was just like, oh my God, like you're taking this seriously as I'm taking it, maybe perhaps more so because I'm not writing mind maps and stuff like that. Like I just throw a list together, over a couple of days before the episode.
Different people work in different ways.
But yeah, I just could not believe the quality of content, or the quality of her list, and the amount of preparation, but then just the conversation. Like I know that she can talk, but I was just like, oh wow, like she worked very hard on the episode. Is the only way I can describe it. Like, and not that she sounds like she's trying, but she was like, I'm bringing everything to this. Like I'm leaving it all on the table. And it probably just came down to me not knowing that much about it. Like me telling you that, you're probably like, yeah, Maddie's a hard worker. She's 100%. Like you know a lot better than I do, so you probably wouldn't have been surprised by that. But I was really impressed. But then like Liz really surprised me. Like her list, I think I don't know what I was expecting because we hadn't talked about movies that much in the past, but just the content of her conversation. Like I'm really good friends with Liz. Like we get together at family events and stuff, and I have a chat with her and stuff. But again, like she just brought so much more than I was expecting because I knew that was something that she wasn't 100% confident doing. She was like, "Oh, I'll give it a go," but I think she said, "I might be rubbish," and I'm like, "You won't be rubbish. It's fine. Like, don't worry about it." And she really wasn't. It was just So those two are probably the most unexpected. But then, as I said, like my sister surprised me. I wasn't expecting her to bring her A game and bring so much to the table as well. So I kind of go in with no expectations and then just see how the episodes go.
Yeah.
Should I be listing you as an answer somewhere here? Because I feel like I haven't mentioned you at all.
No, that's okay. That's fine. That's fine. No, just kidding. So then what are the future plans for the show? What's next for the show? Like, where do you want to where do you want to go from here?
There's a lot of stuff I want to do. I'm currently working on a project I was going to talk about on the show today, but it's not ready yet. I don't even know if it will be something that goes ahead. Like, I'm working on it, but I need people to kind of look over the project and say, hey, there's something here, or this is good for you, but maybe didn't do anything with it. So I guess I shouldn't talk about something I can't talk about on the show. Merchandise is a big thing I want to do.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Nick showed me some stuff offline. He showed me about, like, I think it's called Printify or something, where you can kind of do drop shipping. So you can design merch and then link it to an Etsy account. And then basically what happens if you sell something, I'm just giving you guys the inside details of how this business works, but it's fine. They just take like a percentage of every sale you make. So you don't have to manufacture anything yourself. So I'd love to get some merch going. Even just a couple of t-shirts or something.
Yeah.
Or some stickers just to get the name out. As well, but also, like, I kind of want my own t-shirt that has my podcast name on it.
Why not?
So merchandising is something I'm looking at. Again, like, Michael from We Love Horror has merch. I was like, geez, like, you've got merch already. That's fantastic. And he's been doing the show a bit longer than I have, but I was very impressed by the fact that he had merch. So I'd like to do that. I do see a world where we could monetize the show, and that's not me again, like, trying to grab dollars. But there's a lot of opportunities to do a Patreon. I've got ideas for other shows, but it comes down to time.
It's like spin-off shows.
Yeah, so time, but it's based on time and money. So, like, right now, between my workload and my life load and stuff like that, this is what I can kind of handle. But if the show were to grow, I know what I could do with a Patreon. I know what I could do for side shows. I know I could get Nick on something a bit more regular. I could get you involved in some other things as well, but that depends on the growth of the show and what kind of time I'm allowed and stuff. But I've got ideas there, so that is a goal. And it might sound really silly, but, like, I've thought about it a few times. I'd like to do the show live at least once. I'd love to do like a fringe or something. Just like, hey, we're just going to throw the podcast together on the live stage, and even if it bombs, at least we tried it.
Yeah.
So those are kind of, like, in terms of growing the show and, like, of all possibilities, like, those are the things I'd like to do. I want to do more crossovers with other podcasts. I've worked with those 2 shows I mentioned already. I'm slowly building a bit of a network and meeting more podcasts and stuff as well. I'd like to do more stuff with them. I'd like to interview more filmmakers. Like, I've got a taste for it now.
Yeah.
And now that I've completely embarrassed myself
you could do
with
like a whole filmmaker segment.
Yeah. But the beautiful thing is that the possibilities are endless. But I guess the one thing I don't want to change, and the one thing that I want to keep working on in the future, is the core of what the show is.
Yeah.
So whilst I want to do all these different things, regardless of what happens with the show, and you kind of take into different directions and going into merchandising and Patreons and other guests and stuff, at the end of the day, the show needs to be about people who love movies talking about movies. That's what it needs to be. And I want that same roster, like, as long as I can have it. Like, you've been in those message groups. I say, hey, thank you all for the last 6 months. Hey, thank you for the last year, that sort of thing. This is what I plan next. If you're not interested anymore, I won't be offended. You've already put in so much time. Thank you. But if you want to keep going along with me, then I appreciate it. And thankfully, everyone still wants to do it. And I think
because everybody has fun doing it.
It is a lot of fun. And also, I don't ask a lot of time of people, I don't think. Like, the people I ask the most of really are like you and Nick, where I'm like, hey, I need you to jump down and do an episode with me. But you guys are kind of like the foundation. Like, this show was born out of Pass the Remote. Like, you were the people who...
Which was born out of, that's what she said.
Which was born out of, the Twidcast Movie Club, which was born out of Twidcast. So, like, I'm listing shows that people are like, what are you guys talking about? Like, I was telling the guys on Midnight Terrors that I'm like, I've been podcasting for over 10 years. Like, I've just had a show for a few months and then it died, and then a couple of years later I tried something different.
That's what she said. Lasted for a long time.
That's what she said. We got 13 weeks, I think, 13 episodes, and then it became Past the Remote.
Oh.
Because we got through all of season 1 and half of season 2 of The Office, and then, or most of season 2 of The Office, and then we realized we're talking more and more about Game of Thrones and movie trailers, and then we were like, look, maybe we need to do a different show. We kind of changed it. Yeah. But those shows are still out there. You can still listen to Past the Remote, and that's what she said. I never took them offline. I was like, look, if anyone's ever interested.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, so the show, regardless of how much changes, I want that kind of central core of the show to remain the same.
Yeah, otherwise then it's not what it is.
Yeah. I remember right after only a few weeks after the show launched, I think maybe like 4 episodes in, I discovered Movies to Be Buried With, the Brett Goldstein podcast.
Yeah.
I was like, man, he's doing what I do, but it's better. And I was like, damn it. But there's room for a couple of us out there. So
yeah, that's right.
I adore that show. I haven't listened to it in a few.
It's really good.
But he just recently interviewed, I can't remember who it was now, someone who I really like. You'd think I'd remember, but but he does a lot of episodes of James A. Caster and Ed Gamble and stuff. So
yeah,
pretty good. Maybe one day we can do a crossover. See how he feels about that.
That's right. All right. Well, then we're up to the big question, James.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the big question is, will you marry? No. The big question is.
That was legitimately very funny. I was expecting that. Poppadoms or bread?
Poppadoms or bread? Poppadoms or bread, James Chalmers? Poppadoms or bread? Do you still consider yourself? Oh, I know you don't consider yourself a teenage film star. So the answer to this question is really simple. Then, are you still a teenage film star?
Certainly not a teenage one.
No.
No. Well.
Would you use a different word from snob? Would you use the word I'm a middle-aged? It's not middle-aged.
A teenage mutant ninja. I think the answer is complicated.
Aficionado.
Like the answer is complicated. The short answer is no. Like I'm not snobby about films anymore. But I found that like.
Do you think you actually are getting better?
Yes.
Good.
Yes. But I also think that like my love for film has grown exponentially. Even over the last 12 months.
And you reckon that's a lot of that's got to do with exposure, watching more films.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've tried to do that for the last few years. Like since 2017, obviously, the year that we got married, I decided that I was going to try and watch 365 movies in 365 days.
And not help me plan a wedding.
I did help a little bit, but I remember, I do remember how frustrated you were about something that didn't matter.
Yeah. I'm 4 movies behind. I've got to catch up. Like, James, it's 11 o'clock at night. We need to go to bed. Oh, but then tomorrow I'll be 5 movies behind.
My favorite thing was like I love that experiment, and I don't do that anymore. Like I do have some rules for myself. I want to try and watch a certain number of films each year. I want to consume a certain number of new films and rewatch a certain number of films as well, just to keep me sharp and like keep the love alive. But so I really did like that experiment, but that was crazy. I did beat that number though the year Zoe was born because I had a lot of time on my hands. But my favorite part of that whole year was on the last day, December 31st. We were in line for Jumanji, and I had my list open. I still keep a list on my phone. Every time I watch a movie, I put it on my list. And I wrote Jumanji, 2017. And you looked over, I was right, and you're like, well, did you do it? I was like, oh, I'm going to save it for the show. You're like, James, I don't care anymore. I never did. And I thought that was so funny. I thought that you would have been happy that the madness was over. But yeah, so I guess, again, like I did get a little bit sidetracked, but I've been trying to consume a large number of films for a long time. But I think, again, that desire to have conversation with people about film is now being satisfied. And now that I'm talking about it regularly, I'm maintaining that excitement and that enjoyment as well. So, and like I honestly feel like I did when I worked in the video store, which would have been the height of my.
And maybe you feel like a teenage film snob.
I feel, I get very excited and passionate, and like again, like this is gonna sound so wanky, but like my favorite thing in the world is to curate lists for people. Like like how when you're a teenager, like if you were dating, and I don't know whether you did this.
You make a mixtape.
You make a mixtape, and that's kind of what I do. Like obviously not with romantic intentions, but like now I'm at a point where I'm like when I get to know people, I'm like, oh, I can kind of pick and choose. I'm like these you'll like this movie, and like it's really kind of fun thing for me that gets me excited about. So my excitement is at a constant about movies now in a way that it wasn't over 12 months ago. So film snob, no, but definitely like there's a reinvigorated love and passion for it, more so than I even thought I had when I started the show. But it's all just for the love of the art form and to celebrate it and to get people excited about it and try and show people cool movies. That's why I was like, I really liked my 80s film list because I deliberately went out of the way to choose movies that a lot of people probably wouldn't have seen and just be like, hey, like you wouldn't have heard of this, but I think you'd dig it. Like, check it out.
Yeah.
Which I think in a way is kind of like it can borderline snobby or pretentious, but it's.
No, I think it's a show of affection. I think it's a this is what I know about you, and this is what I know you like. It's almost like you make it, yeah, like our mixtape is a little present to someone.
Yeah.
So like it's like a little present to go, I think you're really gonna enjoy these things. And let me know what you think and if you did, and we can talk about them. No, I think it's a great thing to do.
Well, good. I'm glad, because sometimes I do wonder and I do question myself. But yeah, so I don't think I'm a film snob anymore. I think
So then are you going to change the name of the podcast?
Well, no, because I was a teenage film snob, but I'm trying to be better.
That's right.
Throw in the catchphrase wherever you get the end. Finn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's all the questions I have for you tonight, James. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I feel we've covered a lot in a short period of time. Like, this is not a normal episode. It doesn't need
Well, it's because it's been the conversation's very like me just asking and you talking. Like, there's not much there's not much said by me.
Yeah. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
Me?
Yeah.
I really have a good time doing the show.
Do you like?
Yeah, I do.
No.
I have a good time doing the show.
There's one thing I'm going to go back to that, because it's a question you asked me before, because I was thinking about it and saying I do know I need to change. I need to share the microphone more. That's one thing I've been working on a lot, because I do dominate the conversation a lot. Tonight's a bit different because you're basically like asking me a bunch of questions about it.
I don't know about that, James, because I think the thing is
no, like there have been episodes you're like, I'm trying to talk and you're stepping on me. Like,
yeah, but that's more got to do with like taking turns.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's more about that
sort of thing. Like you don't dull your fire. Don't dim
no.
Like, but you're excited to talk about the things that you want to talk about.
But there has to be two sides.
Of I'm in the middle of a sentence and you're, cutting into that.
But there are two sides to a conversation. I have to remember that at times.
That's all right. I interrupt you as well.
But yeah, no. Well, I'm glad you enjoy it. I'm looking forward to doing a lot more of it. We're going to have you on soon for your 90s list.
Yeah, that's right. I know what's going to be on that.
I mean, if it's the movie you watched the other night, then I know what's going to be on.
What's the movie I watched? Oh, yes. That was fun. Definitely going to make it on the list.
I think Maddie teased on the show that you were going to be doing that. So in case you didn't, I won't spoil it if it's going to be on your list. But I'm still putting my list together, which I'll have to get ready because I'll be talking with Nick next week and we'll be talking about 90s films.
Yeah. All I'm going to say is, if you want to be my lover.
Well, I think everyone knows that.
Yeah. I couldn't leave people guessing because they were like, oh, what if it was like, because the way that I said it, what if it was a really raunchy movie or something? I was like, no, it's just Spice World.
There's some raunch in it. There's buns. Yeah. There's hot buns in tight lycra suits.
Yeah.
Pretty raunchy.
The Italian dance.
The touchy-feely alien guy.
Yeah.
We're getting ahead of ourselves. Excellent. Well, thank you for joining me on this landmark episode. A bit different. So if people were looking forward to this, apologies all around. We will be returning to our regularly scheduled program next week. But I guess at this point I should thank all the listeners for supporting the show for the last year. It's been an absolute blast. It's, as I said, just shocking how much has come from it, and like how far it's reached, and the guests we've had, and the opportunities that the show has had. It's been mind-blowing. Very, very grateful for all that. So if you've been enjoying the show, please keep listening. We've got a lot of exciting things down the line. I'm really excited. The one I'm most excited for now is episode 50.
Yeah.
There's a lot to get organized for that. I haven't talked about what the topic is at all. I'm keeping it a secret. When people say the episode, like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Like, it's not anything like, the 50 greatest people I ever met from film or anything like that. But it will make a lot of sense. But it's ambitious because we're going to have, I would say this, multiple guests.
Yeah.
Multiple guests. And I'm playing in my head because if left out of control, will be a 6-hour show.
Yeah, so we can't have that.
And no, so I mean, look, we can, but it wouldn't really work for people because we'd be up till like 3 a.m. recording. But that's what I'm really looking forward to next, and then just everything that comes after that, and catching up with Tyler and Harley about their Scream movie, which I should be speaking with them soon about. So a couple of cool things in the pipeline. But until then, thank you everyone for listening. If you haven't done so
already, thank you guests as well.
Yes. good reminder, because I was going to say I was going to, but I wasn't. Yeah, no, obviously a huge thank you to all the guests. I say it time and time again, but they cut out so much time and ask of nothing in return. Thankfully, they seem to enjoy it, which makes it easier to ask them. But making a podcast takes time. Like we have to get everything scheduled in. There's always a preamble and a debrief after each episode. So if you listen to a 2.5-hour episode, there's probably been 3.5 hours episode work from that guest that night. Because most of our shows are recorded at nights as well. So it goes without saying, but we will say it. I just appreciate every single guest who's been on, giving up time and putting in that effort to bring something entertaining to the listeners. If you haven't done so already, please follow the show on Instagram. I was a teenage film snob, _ between each word. Check us out on anywhere you can find podcasts, really. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor FM. Give the show a like and a rating. 5 stars only. If not 5 stars, get out of here. That's a running gag we've been doing, just in case you thought I was being rude. I've been saying it for like the last few episodes now. Anything you write, it'll be nice because it brings some attention to the show. But that's it. That's it for this shorter episode, the 50th episode. Very excited, as I said. Tina, do you have anything you want to add before we wrap this bad boy up?
No, just that I've really enjoyed doing this for the past year. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thanks for being on it so much and for being someone I can go to it in the 11th hour. If I've had a guest cancel, it's happened a couple times. Like, Tina, I know that you've got like 500 things on, but can you squeeze out like an hour just to talk about food from movies you like? Can you do it? Because you've done all the weird episodes.
Yeah.
Like the food.
I think the improv episode was my favorite one. I loved doing that episode.
That was a lot of fun. I think that like the one thing that I should have done is let the audience know that it was an improv.
Because you jumped straight in, and I was like, being a drama teacher, I'm like, well, I can't break character.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, because I was sitting there, I was like, no, we have to explain what we're doing. But you jumped straight in, and I was like, but now I have to be in character.
That's
But it was so much fun.
That was a lot of fun. It's
a lot of fun.
The kind of thing we couldn't do on a regular basis. Although, like I said before, like live shows, like that might be an avenue to go down with the live show. Like you might want to, people might want to sit down and listen to someone do a list of 5 movies, but they might be like, oh, some improv, like some jokes and stuff, like that might be an avenue to do it. So anyway, that's all for down the line.
Yeah.
But no, thank you. You have been a really big supporter of the show and letting me kind of just do my own thing has been really appreciated. Pardon me. That's going to do it for this week's episode of I Was a Teenage Film Snob. As we say every single week, guys, I was a teenage film snob, but I'm trying to be better. We'll see you next week.